On episode 21 of the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast podcast, it's just Shannon and me today. Brock is busy moving. But speaking of moving, Shannon and I talk about the challenges of move-up season in the youth ministry calendar. Whether it's first time in middle school or freshmen coming into high school or seniors graduating to the next thing, if we even have a next thing, move-up season is busy, tricky, and it's hard on the emotions. We don't have all the answers, but we have a good conversation anyway. So, we're glad you're with us. Roll down the windows and let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast podcast. My name is Steve Anderson and I'm joined today by Shannon Dunn. Hi Shannon.
Hey Steve.
We are without Brock today, kind of a bummer.
Brockless.
He is moving. We are Brockless once again. He is the second member of our team to move in the last 3 months.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
You lived through it.
I lived through it and it's the worst. So I feel for him, and especially that he expected to have already been done and he's not. I get that, and it's the worst.
Don't you think it's probably something that always takes longer than you think it's going to take?
Oh, yeah.
I dread the day. I haven't moved in so long. It's going to take multiple trucks to get us out of our house.
I think you're never moving, Steve. I think that's your final.
No, maybe not. Maybe not. It's interesting that he's choosing to move in this month because, I mean, May is insanity month in student ministry for the most part. At least it is here.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, I have some mom friends who refer to this month as May-cember because it is almost as busy as the month of December with school wrapping up, sports wrapping. I mean, just everything as you prepare to launch into summer feels like too much.
Grad parties and end of year stuff at school, honor society ceremonies, whatever.
That's right. And don't forget,
it is a lot.
Don't forget, Steve, Mother's Day is also in May. Okay. So let's not forget that.
Okay. I will remember Mother's Day because I'm preaching on Mother's Day.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I absolutely hate when they ask a mom to preach on Mother's Day. I'm like, why are you making me work? Not doing that.
No. Mother's Day. It's also my birthday.
Oh.
Usually, often falls on Mother's Day. This year it's 2 days later, but so we celebrate in weird ways at our household.
Okay, so you have to deal with all of the school transition, youth group transitions, and your birthday at the same month. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so it's a lot, which is going to lead into our discussion for today. So because there's just two of us, we're going to keep it a little bit shorter. We're just going to do one segment today. And I'm calling this segment Changes because this is the season of change in student ministry. At least it is for our student ministry.
Yeah.
Over the next 30 days, really it's all compressed into about 15 days, we are going to have our senior banquet.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to move the new sixth graders into our ministry.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to move the new freshmen out of middle school into high school. And we're going to launch our college group for the summer. And it is insane. All that plus the grad parties and everything else that is happening at this time.
Yeah, not to mention that you do eventually need to get everyone to camp sometime later too. So it's like...
Camp's going to feel like a breather.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like 2 weeks after all this. So it's crazy.
You transition them all in do you have like a move up Sunday or I don't know what that's what we've called it, but I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, we call it move up week because most of our ministry isn't based on Sunday morning. So we kind of do it all around the same time. We call it move up week so we can communicate it clearly. But there's like a party element to each of those that requires a theme or some energy around that.
Yep.
There's a lot of communication for people trying to make sure they understand, especially we have a lot of students whose families really aren't connected to the church at large. So to communicate to them, hey, we know your kid's going into high school. That doesn't mean youth group has ended. We still have high school youth ministry as well.
Right.
so all of that, and then the senior thing, I mean, that could be a whole episode, but we put a lot into that. We try to really honor and bring closure and make it very personal. So,
Mm.
That's a huge endeavor. So yeah, all of that coming in the span of 20 days. And, like any good youth pastor, I've pretty much procrastinated to this point.
Didn't we decide that's a trait of a good youth pastor?
We did.
Procrastination.
We did.
Oh.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a little unfair. We've been very busy. It's hard to work ahead on stuff like that.
Sure. For your seniors, it's like a night just for them, like a random night, or what? How do you do that?
We do it on a Sunday night, which is when our group normally meets. Okay. So instead of meeting that night, and it's always the Sunday after Mother's Day, and it's right before they graduate. So there's no conflicts generally because there's no school conflicts. They're about to graduate, so we get a pretty good attendance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do it pretty well, I think. We honor them with memories of their years in the ministry. We choose a word for each kid and speak that word over them and give them a little bracelet with that word on it.
Wow.
I know.
That's
we
big.
make up a fake future for every kid, like the funny part of the night.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Okay.
But now there's so many kids, it's really, really hard.
Yeah. And now what about, because we get this every year, even in a small youth group that's going to have, 2 to 8 kids graduating, depending on the year. We always get a kid that expects to be honored as a senior graduating who's like almost never been to anything, but their parents consider the church their church. And so, I mean, we don't do anything like what you're describing. We literally get them on stage on a Sunday morning. The last few years I've been gifting them a hammock because that was very fitting to sort of the students. Cool. And I think it's like a fun take to college gift. And then I write them a nice note from me.
I love that.
And we pray for them in the service, and I ask them to share a memory to the whole church or something like that. But, what do you do?
Okay.
What do you do with those students who literally came to camp once, but their parents are involved, or maybe they're not even involved, but they have an expectation to be honored as a senior,
I want to ask you a question first.
Okay.
So do you have a kid that shows up that you didn't know?
I haven't.
Like you invite them up.
No, I haven't had that because it's
okay.
The senior one is pretty pre-planned of I'm emailing them sort of individually and inviting them to come.
Okay.
But as I go through my list, when I send that email, sometimes there's people on that email that I'm like, if they respond to this, that's going to be weird. They have not shown up, and it does happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That happened to me when I asked you. We used to do that.
Yeah.
And that happened to me one time. And that's when I decided that's never going to happen to me again.
Sure.
So we're going to create this event that we are going to have people RSVP to. So I know who's going to be there.
Yeah.
But then I have to wrestle down the second question, which is what do you do with the kids whose families are part of the church, but they never come?
Yeah.
And we are very careful about making that invitation list so that we don't have any surprises. So my general thinking is if the kids' families really involved in the church and they haven't been, I'm going to invite them.
Yeah.
Kind of secretly hope they don't come.
Yeah.
But invite them. Just to honor their family, which we will do if they come.
Yeah. And then you'll pretend you know them and make something up about them.
And we'll treat them super kindly. Yeah. They just won't be able, I mean, we're not going to have pictures of them to show from when they were in 7th grade on the camping trip or, that kind of stuff. We're not going to be able to do.
For sure.
But we make that list really carefully because there's a lot of kids on the fringes who've come and gone and we want to know exactly who we invited. So
for sure.
We did that. We've sent the invitations out. We're waiting for responses, and it's going to be an interesting year because we have a bunch of seniors that came for the first time this year, probably almost a third of our group.
Wow.
And so it's a whole different vibe, but we'll do it. We'll do it best we can.
I mean, I think that's amazing for those seniors, and hopefully in the midst of how busy they are, it's going to be a good experience for them. I am almost more curious about, for you, the other transitions, like children, whatever age children's ministry moves to middle school. I think you said that they transitioned from 6th to 7th grade into youth ministry. Is that right?
No, we have 6th, 7th, and 8th,
Oh,
so
okay.
they come in
Okay.
as
They come
out
in
of
as
5th
6th
grade.
graders.
Yeah.
And then
hmm
also then there's a transition from the middle school group to the high school group.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So how does that go for you?
Yeah. So that's interesting because especially the younger kids, we have 2 campuses, so we have to kind of combine those efforts.
Mm.
But we do an event where we actually invite the whole family to come. It's outside in the summer, and so we invite the kid and the parents and the siblings if they want to come, and we play some games and introduce ourselves in the student ministry, and that's gone really well. I think we started that maybe 5 years ago, but we do that right at the beginning of June because we have youth group in some capacity over the summer, and we want the kids to be able to come to that.
Yeah.
Like they're ready to be done with children's ministry, so we want to have a place for them to come for the summer, so we want that to happen, so there's time for that. So it goes pretty well, but we don't get all the kids.
Mm.
We just don't get all the
So
kids
some of them
for whatever reason.
don't transition from the children's ministry to the youth ministry. They just sort of stop coming.
It seems that way. Yeah. Or maybe they didn't come that faithfully in the children's ministry.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then new kids pop in, but that's kind of how we do that transition. And then late in the summer there's a break, so there's that awkward point between we've moved them up, but now we're not meeting for a month, and we'll be back in September.
Yep.
So
yeah, we've battled that a lot. So we have a 4th and 5th grade group that is actually under the student ministry umbrella. And part of that's because it was sort of a gifting of mine that I brought from a different church. But the reason in my previous church that we started the 4th and 5th grade group was part of this transition piece was that we saw a drop off in students at 3rd grade and like them not be super dedicated to the children's ministry, even at 4th and 5th grade. Because in our context, it wasn't being done well for 4th and 5th graders. I'm not saying every context is that way, but in our context, it was still like for babies, they thought, for kids, it was too young for them. And so we would give them like a taste of youth ministry, like youth ministry light in 4th and 5th grade. And then honestly, we saw the middle school program grow because the 4th and 5th graders, man, they eat up youth ministry related things. I mean, the silliness of youth ministry is like a 4th and 5th graders jam, So that was one of the things we actually did to sort of like battle that weird transition where they sort of start dropping off at the end of elementary school and you don't get them to roll over into middle school. But then the tricky piece is at our church is that we don't do summer programming really almost at all. And so we used to move them up right as they graduated in June, and we'd be able to move up Sunday and we'd welcome them into the new ministry. And it was this whole thing. And we kind of needed to do that because the 5th graders moving into middle school are allowed to come to summer camp. So you want them to feel like I've moved up. But then there wasn't really anything for them to move up into. And so we now actually sort of welcome them into the new ministry at the end of summer with like our fall kickoff. And a big thing. And we are small enough that, and there's enough relationship in the youth ministry with the 5th graders that we just welcome, like summer camp might be their first experience into the middle school. And actually that's ended up working out well. It's a good relational building piece. So it works, but it's definitely been tricky to figure out all the dates and all the moving pieces and how do you balance this and that and this.
Yeah, it is tricky. Our children's ministry does a great job. They do a thing in the spring where they call it Spiritual Champions, and it's just for 5th graders. So it's like a special 8 weeks just for 5th graders right before they leave, which I really appreciate that. I think that's healthy. But we don't take 6th graders to camp. We don't take existing 6th graders to camp, let alone the incoming ones.
Oh, okay.
So there's a little bit cleaner.
What's the reason behind that?
Cleaner break. Because it's with high school, so I just feel like 7th through 12th is probably a big enough gap.
Yeah.
Some of the conversations may not be quite appropriate for the 6th graders.
Absolutely.
In that context.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think I've said often, I think youth ministry or middle school should actually be like December of sixth grade year and up, because they
Yeah,
just change a lot that first year developmentally.
it's true. It's true. I actually grew up in a junior high context. So I went to seventh, eighth, and ninth grade in the
Hmm.
same school, and then 10th through 12th in the same school. But that's not the way it is anymore, at
Right,
least here in Maryland.
right.
So you can't really cross the way they're broken up in school has to be the way you break up your student ministry.
A
There's
hundred
just no way
percent.
around that.
And
Yeah.
we actually, interesting, I've tried to do it differently. I've tried to do a 4-5-6 ministry um,
Hmm.
in more than one context. I've tried to do that. And it did okay, but it got real confusing for people. They're like, well, I
Hmm.
changed schools, but now I don't know. It's tricky.
Yeah. The harder transition, I think, for us is probably I feel like when kids graduate from high school, it's a really hard transition
Mm,
for them at that point from student ministry.
yeah.
Um,
Why do you say that that's a hard transition out of high school?
I think the initial summer the kids graduate from high school, their minds are all over the place. Their bodies are all over the place. I mean, they're going on vacation,
Yeah.
senior trips. Unfortunately, they go to senior week at the beach around here, and um, summer jobs and going to school early for
Yeah.
their sports, camp or whatever it is. And so um, they're just kind of on the outs, but they're still around in spurts.
So
And
you,
so we want to
yeah.
we want to move them into the college ministry, but they're still in the high school groups. A lot of them still go to summer camp. It's just a really like messy, gray weirdness about that transition.
So
Doesn't
you
feel clean.
allow your 12th graders to still come to summer camp where you're
Hmm.
graduating
Hmm.
seniors, but they're like in and out of It's yeah, it's messy because they're both in and out of youth ministry. That's
Yeah.
fascinating to me too, that sort of the expectation that I'm wondering if you're unique, your church is unique in this, like the expectation that they graduate and then that summer they jump into a college group that really most of them won't be around for in the fall, right? They'll be like
Yeah.
leaving. And
Yeah.
I think we could do a whole episode on college ministry, even though it's like maybe none of our
Yeah.
expertise, but it feels to me like the idea of college ministry, unless you're next to a college, that I don't know, like it just doesn't function that well, I guess. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
some
It's
places it
very
does, but
messy.
it's
Yeah.
messy, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting too, because there's this weird, like almost like a cutoff. Like some of the kids are like, I feel like they like shake your hand and they're like, "Have a nice life," but we know,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
also know like that's not our goal. I know, at least for us, like that our
Right.
deep desire is to continue to be a part of their lives, like after high
Yes.
school in some capacity. And it's not like we're like, okay, bye, you're out of our group, see you later. But how do you do that?
There's a weird, yeah, because at the senior banquet, it's such a big deal and it's so personal, and we feel so good about it, like
Mm,
we love you so much, and here's how much we care about it. We even have a word for your life, right?
sure.
And then literally some of those kids we don't see again.
Yeah.
Um, because for whatever reason, I mean, maybe their families don't even go to this church and they just move on with life.
Yeah.
I think my personality type has always struggled with that
Mm,
because I like to kind of have a collection of relationships and that I want to follow up on. And I just have to tell myself that there's a season that might be for some the only contact we have, and just entrust that that's it, and I have to be okay with that.
yeah.
Um
What do you, outside of
so
like inviting them to join the college group for the summer, do you and your leaders have any kind of like, you know, typical things you do
mm,
for follow up after they do graduate?
no, other than just the organic
Yeah.
texting, reaching out, relational
And
contacting.
then it's only the
There's no
ones
like
you were close
formal
to,
thing.
right? It's like the
Yeah, or the ones that respond.
yeah.
Yeah, the ones that were close to you that want to
Yeah.
have that input in their life. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
that's
encourage our youth leaders to do the same thing, but then we also often our youth leaders will graduate a group of seniors and then cycle back to the freshmen. So they carry another group of relational,
Sure.
another suitcase full of relationships with them. It's hard for them to think about their grads and think about their kids that are coming into the group. And
Sure.
it's just a lot. So
I was part of a church that I thought did something really interesting, and it was coming out of the Sticky Faith research. And they budgeted to have like that year after college to like still continue to be a part of the students' lives. Now, they couldn't do it with every graduating senior, but they would do their best to the ones that were really invested and involved. And literally there was budget to fly and see them or drive or whatever it was, to travel for like, there was like 3 people on staff that sort of were capable of doing it, and go visit kids in college that first year. And I was like,
oh, I love that.
What a cool thing to actually dedicate some budget money. Not because texting is, I think, a better step than many people are doing, right? But taking it to that next level, I think that's incredible. Like, to put budget to that next year after they graduate.
That's a really good point. We've done a couple times, we've done care packages, which takes some cash to do, but only a couple times. It's just logistically really hard, right?
I did
How are you going to track down all the addresses? And
And the funniest thing I sent them in that care package, it was actually my husband and I were like doing co-youth ministry together. Our care package was a picture of Joel and I, my husband and I. We wrote "Make wise choices." Put it in the care package and sent it to them in college. I still laugh at that. I'm like, oh, we were ridiculous, but Yeah.
So all of that happening in the span of 20 days, just the programming elements of it are exhausting. The relational elements are just spin my head around in circles. And then we get to summer camp. I'm like, I don't even know where I am anymore.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a really fun and engaging and challenging time of year.
And you hope and pray for each of those transitions that either you catch all of them or as many as you can, or like that the seeds you've planted as they go away stick. And I think it's kind of emotional as a youth minister too in those seasons, right? To like, I don't know. It actually is a lot to carry. These transitions are a lot for us to carry too. And I think we're moving so quickly that we don't often stop and think about the weight of what these transitions put on us. And then we just go into summer camp and then we go to the next thing and we don't process, like, I just went through a lot, actually. Like, not just time management a lot, but like a lot of weight to carry too.
This particular year, our girls director here, she's been the small group leader for this senior class of girls since they were in 6th grade.
Wow.
Among her many other responsibilities. So she's walked with this crew for 7 years.
That's so cool.
She is going to just be destroyed on May 19th at this banquet, speaking these words of encouragement over these girls that she loves.
Yeah.
And then the emotional reset to then, now what do I do with the next 7 years? Am I up for another round of that? Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Well, not to put the weight on you, Steve, but I hope that you will help her walk through that, because that sounds like I just think there's so much potential to not recognize the weight of that on ourselves. So for someone else to say, hey, it's okay that you're mourning the loss or mourning the change or the transition or not knowing what that student's going to do with the rest of their lives. And I don't know, it's hard to release sometimes. So
yeah, I think it's hard to release the feeling like you're responsible for their future.
Yeah. It's too much weight to carry.
It's too much weight to carry. There has to be a sense of, I have done my best.
Yep.
And I hand this child over to you, Lord. Please protect them from sorority life.
I hope that this hammock I am gifting you will remind you of the good choices you should make.
This year we're giving out copies of The Purpose-Driven Life for College Students, I think it's called.
Uh,
So, yeah.
All right, that's a good
Hopefully
one.
they read it. I don't know. We give them a book. I mean, we give them all kinds. You know what else I've done though? This is interesting. I've started to give parents a copy of the book Growing With
Oh,
from
cool.
Fuller Youth Institute. Because it's a book about how to parent your adulting children.
That's cool.
It's really good. So I ordered copies of that for all the parents.
That's a good one.
As a gift to them. Because, we didn't even talk about this, and you haven't experienced this yet, Shannon, but your own kids graduating is a whole new level. Out of youth ministry and out of your household, it is a whole new level of emotion.
Mine will never be that old. Stop it.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. All right, so it's time for our Sherpa question of the day. Shannon, this is a question I came up with. Okay. Just be honest. What kind of student are you most ready to see graduate from your youth ministry? I'm not asking for names. I'm asking just for types.
Yeah. I actually think we've talked about this a little bit in an episode before, but not like directly this question. For me, it's the Pharisee kid. It's the judgy kid who like is so Christian that when like a kid wearing baggy pants comes, they're like, oh, they're a sinner, I mean, and it's horrible, but sometimes I like pray for them to experience a little bit of hardship because like, I just don't think that sounds very bad, but just like, I hope for their college that they experience something that's going to give them a more realistic view of what a relationship with God is, because I worry about the way they make Christians look. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
That's straight up honest right there. Okay, can't get more honest than that.
That's very honest. Those are probably the kids going to some super fundamentalist college somewhere, right? Man. Okay.
How about you?
My answer to the question is, I'm usually ready to see the kind of super entitled kid go. Like there's different kinds of kids who are really invested in the student ministry. They're the kinds who are just like delightful all the time.
Yeah.
Right. They're so encouraging to you, and they love other kids, and they're welcoming, and they're all in. Like those kids, man, that's heartbreaking when they leave. But they're the ones who are like, this is my life, but this thing revolves around me.
Yeah.
And everything has to happen for me. And I'm by senior year, when you have a group of kids that kind of give that vibe, I'm like, okay, I love you. Be warm and well fed. We'll see you in a year.
Yeah.
You can go now.
You can go. Have a nice life.
You may go. Have a nice life. Yeah.
And you
find out how good you had it here and appreciate it someday. I would say,
and your prayer for them is like, I hope something in college lets them know the world does not revolve around them. Right?
Yes. Yes. And you hope that someday they'll come back and say, man, I wasn't very nice to you, was I?
That's never happening. I will say, when I think about the specific kids I'm describing, I have actually been delightfully surprised by what kind of adults many of them have become. So even though I get frustrated and annoyed, I can think of specific kids who I am like, man, God did work in through college, and they're like really cool now. So
your prayers were answered.
My prayers were answered.
Well done. All right. So as we wrap up this thought about transitions and changes and all of that, when you reset mentally in the fall, after all of this, like how do you enter into that season and still honor the season that's already been? Like, do you have like a mental framework to put that all in your head?
I don't know. To be honest, I am someone who likes change a lot, but because I think I like change because of the reset though, right? And so I don't know that I'm great at, like, as you asked that, I don't know that I'm great at holding on and honoring, the past as much as I am like good at being excited for the fresh start and the moving forward. I will say this, I usually, when I launch the fall, sort of do forget about the students who have gone off to college, which is sad and hard. But about Christmas time, when I know they're coming back home, my brain kind of will kick back into, hey, wait, they're coming back. Like, let me reach out. Let me sort of like see what's going on in their life. So it takes me a minute.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I think that's how I kind of do it too. I'll take a moment when I think of it in the fall, maybe someday in September, and I'll just text a bunch of them.
Yeah.
While I'm thinking of it. And then Thanksgiving, try to maybe get a gathering together or something like that. And we also have the blessing of every summer we hire summer interns, and they're always former students. We have a requirement that they're the second year removed from high school before they do that. But we always have a conversation in the fall and into the winter of like, who would we be interested in? Who would consider doing this coming summer? And it's really cool to see them kind of cycle back, 2 years later and reinvest in the youth ministry and reconnect with us. And that's one of the real joys of sticking around and being able to have students come back and serve.
I love that.
Yeah, they're not all off and gone forever. Some of them at least are back for a summer or a couple summers.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, we got a busy month. I got a talent show this Friday and then all these transition events. I'm preaching on Mother's Day. Both my kids who live out of state are spending a week with us in different weeks in the next month.
Aww.
So it's going to be nuts.
It's going to be nuts.
I'm going to get to summer camp and be exhausted. It's all good.
It's the perfect place to be rejuvenated.
Yeah. Brock's, all he's doing is moving. He's not even busy. He's got nothing going on. So he's the one that should be taking time to make a podcast.
Busy and recording for National Day of Volunteer Youth Ministry Training.
Yeah.
Brock
How about
Morgan.
that? How about that?
Well,
famous.
Steve, I want to know, in the midst of all of this, what kept you going this week?
Oh. Well, we had a conversation offline where I vented all my frustrations to you.
That is true.
So I need something to keep me going this week, Shannon.
Yeah.
Real small thing. We baptized 3 kids yesterday.
Oh, that's not real small.
One of our services. So that isn't small.
That's not small. That's
right.
awesome.
It's a big thing.
That's life change. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a good thing. How about you?
Mine is real small. I'm not going to lie. I was very sick all week. And honestly, this week, it was legitimately coffee. I had just the joy. Coffee brought me so much joy. I can't even deny it. It's like what I would wake up and think, okay, I'm going to go enjoy that cup of coffee.
I love that.
I know
that.
I know it's sad, but that was the absolute
totally get it.
Joy this week. So
I totally get it. Coffee is joy. Coffee is joy in a bean.
Yes, it is.
I walk my dogs in the morning and I never drink coffee before I walk them because about halfway through the walk, I start talking to them like, hey guys, we're almost home. You know what that means? There's coffee.
Time for coffee.
They're like, we don't care. We just want to smell this pee on this grass here. But, yeah.
Those
coffee is joy.
Those little
Shannon.
moments keep me going this week.
Yeah. Well, if you're a youth pastor, a youth worker, you should drink coffee. That is a requirement.
That's right.
You should also not bear all the weight of all the transition and all the relationships. You can't possibly do so. Do the best you can honoring people. Bear what you can and let God take care of the rest. And find somebody to vent to when you need it.
That's right.
So, thanks for being that for me today, Shannon. Yes. We will be back with our last episode of the spring season. Woo! Very soon. We've got some great ideas coming your way over the summer, hopefully as well. But for today, it's been great being with you. Great to see you, Shannon.
You too, Steve.
And I'll see you again soon.
Let's do it.
Bye.
Bye.